It's Parshas Vayishlach, and it begins by saying Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim El Esav Achiv. Here, Yaakov is returning now home after living with Lavan, and right, he arrives there where he comes to see. He arrives to Lavan's home in the previous parsha, penniless, single. He leaves Lavan's home, a wealthy man with two wives, two sort of semi-wives, and most of what will be his 12 children. And excuse me. And as he's leaving, he knows that he's going to have a confrontation with his brother Esav, who the last time he had any contact with Esav or with anyone who saw Esav wanted to kill him. He was out to get him. So he knows he's going to come into contact with them, and just as he has matured and grown, and his family has gotten bigger, and he has a whole entourage now, he knows that Esav has also amassed an army. So now it's not just Esav, it's that whole army of Esav, and he's about to meet him. Now, one of the things that Talmud tells us about this parsha is that when the rabbis in history used to have to go and meet the government, and of course the government of the countries in the old days were not as favorable to the Jews as we're privileged to have here in Canada, but they were always out to get them. And so the rabbis had to figure out how to deal with them. How do you deal with the government? And they would look in this parsha, because this was how did Yaakov deal with Esav? Because Esav, is the father of Rome, of what today has become the Christian world. Not necessarily does it mean any individual Christian, but it's talking about the history of it. And therefore, the way that Yaakov acts when he interacts with Esav, and how he tries to make it so that he can have a peaceful existence with Esav, is what the rabbis felt throughout history was what they had to do the same. Right? So you'll see a number of things that Yaakov does in this parsha in order to appease him, so that he can live with him in peace. Right? He's not looking to take over Esav. He's not looking to hurt Esav. He simply wants to be left in peace. And if it can be harmonious, where he's in peace and he's with Esav, that's fine. If he's in peace without him, that's also fine. He just wants to be in peace. So it says the first thing he does is Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim Lefanav El Esav Achiv Artz Sa'ir Sadeh Edom. Yaakov sent Malachim, which we'll speak about in a second, before him to go see Esav, his brother, in the land of Sa'ir, in the area of Edom. Edom is the nation that it was started by Esav. He is the father of Edom. And it says here, so what the idea was is that he sent advancement, right? People who are going to come and tell Esav Yaakov is coming, and Yaakov, and talk about him. And he sends these people to Esav in order to give him gifts, to bribe him, to make him happy, and also he speak to Esav in a way that shows that Yaakov feels subservient to him. He says, go to Esav, tell him, my master Esav, says Yaakov. Right? My brother Esav, my master Esav. Right? He speaks very subserviently to Esav. Esav's in charge. This is his world. Yaakov has the world to come. Esav has this world. Right? So he's going, it's like today, you go into a country, right? The king of the country, it's his country. You might be living there, but it's his country. So you defer to him. So he does that. However, he uses the word, it doesn't say that he sent people or messengers. It says malachim. Literally, it means angels. That Yaakov sent angels to his brother. And if you read Rashi says, Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim. Yaakov sent malachim mamish. Literally, angels. Right? It's not that he sent, like you could say, you see, in our understanding of malach, we know a malach is an angel. But what's an angel? So we discussed this before, that an angel is the way the will of God manifests in physical form. Right? God has no body. Right? But let's say we have a desire to do something. So you want to pick up this glasses case here. So what you do is your mind thinks, pick up the glasses case, and it causes a movement in your body, and your hand picks it up. Right? So your mind thinks it. The vehicle that picks up the glasses case is your hand. Right? So your mind has to cause a physical action. God has no body. He's not going to say, I want the grass to grow, and he's going to be able to go down and pull the grass up. So he sends a vehicle, which are called malachim, angels, and they are the will of God that comes to this world and pulls the grass up, right? They do what God wants them to do, right? So in one sense, they're messengers, right? So you could say Yaakov sent messengers to Esau. That's the simple understanding, we would think. But Rashi says no, these weren't messengers. These weren't like his spies or his men who knew how to deal with governments and diplomacy. These were literally angels. So he really sent angels to his brother Esau. And he commands these angels, Lemor, to say the following: Kol tamrun le'adoni le'Esav. Go say to my master Esau, Ko amar abdecha Yaakov. So says your servant Yaakov. You see the subservience of how he talks. Im Lavan garzi. I lived with Lavan. V'acher ad ata. Right? And he says, like, right? He says here, as it says here, he says, I lived with Lavan, and I have stayed there until now, and now I'm coming back. Right? So the first thing is, why would he actually send angels? Like, why? According to Rashi, he sends literally angels. Why? What's the purpose? Why doesn't he send people? He doesn't send angels. And there's a number of problems with this, because first that he decides to send angels when he doesn't have to send angels. He can send people. And therefore we know that sending angels is like doing a miracle, right? And we know that when a person calls on God for a miracle, it costs something. God doesn't, God will do, for a righteous person, God will do things for them. But it costs. In other words, you have a righteous person has merit. Right? They live their life according to the will of God. And God will reward them in the world to come. But if they call on God to do something for him here, so they're calling on God to reward them for something they've done by doing whatever it is they need. Saving my life, giving me food, giving me money, that if I'm very poor and I need money and I pray to God, make a miracle for me, and he does. That costs me some of my merit from the world to come. I'm using it up here. Right? So what does Yaakov have to do that for? He just send people. Why use your merit? Why cause a miracle? Because we have a rule. You don't make a miracle when you can do it naturally. Like, God doesn't go around like a circus performer, showing everybody all the great tricks he can do. Right? If God can cause something to happen based on the laws of nature that he established, he'd prefer it. And simply, Yaakov could have sent angels. The second thing is, if he sends angels to Esau, right, it also presents another issue, which is Esau was evil, right? Esau was not a good person. He wanted to kill Yaakov. He was known to, that he would take women at will, and he would murder people, and he would do whatever he wanted to do, right? And so Yaakov sends some angels. We see from the rest of the parsha, you'd think that it would do something to him. Can you imagine if, people say all the time, all right, I don't believe in God, but you know what, if God would do a miracle, something simple, for me, I'll believe in him. So all I want him to do is take this glasses case, this is a famous glasses case now, I want him just to lift it up 6 inches in the air with nobody touching it, and then put it down. Right, that's all. Right? Now that's that miracle, right, that God does like that. If he did that, right, you'd believe in him. Right? I mean, he does exactly what you say. You believe in him. Now, God's not going to do it, and the reason he's not going to do it is because he already did it. He did it at Mount Sinai. He already came down to the world. He already gave us the Torah. He talked to us. He already did it. So he's not going to keep doing it just because I say so, right? Just because I don't want to believe something unless I see it. Well, that's too bad. So he doesn't do that. But in any case, here Yaakov sends angels to Esau. Esau is not a very good person. You don't think it would do something to him? He meets these angels and he said, wait a minute, there's really angels? There's really God? He really does what Yaakov wants him to do? I better get in line here, because I'm going to pay for this. I'm going to be in trouble. Right? I'm killing people. I'm taking women. I'm stealing. I got to do something. I can't keep doing this. Look at this. These angels. But it doesn't happen. He doesn't change. Right? So let's take first things first. So why does he send angels? and rather than humans, when it's going to cost him, as I said before. The idea is as follows. While it's true that we don't want to do a miracle to be done, when you can do something by the law of nature, there's no reason to do it as a miracle. Rather, just do it simply in a normal way. Just send men. The idea is that's true if you see this world as running by nature. In other words, we, right, and myself included, I see this world runs by the laws of nature. I know in the morning the sun will rise, at night the sun will set. I know in the summer it's hot, in the winter it's cold. Right? I mean, these are things you know. Right? You know this. You don't wake up in January 3rd and say, hey, it's 15 below zero. Well, it's a miracle. It's not a miracle. It happens every year, right? But the fact is, it really is a miracle. See, the difference between nature and a miracle is nature is a miracle that happens all the time. Now, that God causes the sun to rise, he causes the sun to set. It is miraculous. It's just that we're used to it. We call it the laws of nature. But God created the laws of nature. And the fact that God is conscious of us and of this world, the sun will rise. As long as God is conscious of the sun, right, he wants it to rise, it will rise. It's not that he said, okay, go ahead and rise every day. God's conscious of it constantly. He wants it to rise, it rises. He wants it to set, it sets. So on a certain level, if a person can really understand how the world works, everything that happens is miraculous. Everything that happens is miraculous. The fact that a person can get sick, even a cold or something serious, and get better is a miracle. Right? Even though we think, well, you get a cold, you're going to get better, right? Take an aspirin, you're going to get rid of your headache. It's true. And it happens every time. But it's still a miracle, right? Yaakov understood the world. The physical world was a miracle. That's how he lived his life. When the sun rose, he saw that, like he thanked God for making the sun rise, because it was a miracle. Even though it rose yesterday and it's going to rise tomorrow, he still saw it that way. So for him to send angels or to send people was the same thing. It wasn't different. It wasn't like he actually had to have that. Like the Gemara tells a story about a certain rabbi who, in the days of the Talmud, actually earlier than the Talmud, and it tells us that he was extremely poor, and it was going to be Shabbos, and he didn't have oil for Shabbos candles, right? They didn't have wax candles, and they had oil candles. They didn't have oil. So the family comes to him, and they say, what are we going to do? We don't have any money. We don't have any oil for Shabbos candles. We have to light Shabbos candles. It'll be dark for Shabbos. So they don't have electric lights. If you don't have Shabbos candles, there's no light. So he said, take vinegar. Well, what do you mean vinegar? He said, he who commands oil to burn can command vinegar to burn. If God says oil will burn, God will make a miracle for us. He'll make vinegar burn. Just because I don't have enough money doesn't mean God doesn't want me to have Shabbos candles. So they took the vinegar and they lit it, and it burnt. Right? It won't burn for you and me, right? But it did for him, because he understood that when oil burns, that's a miracle. Right? When vinegar burns, it's the same thing. It's no different. That's how Yaakov was. Yaakov understood that everything happens as a miracle. So even when he calls on a miracle, to him it's the same as nature. It's all miraculous. So the fact that he calls an angel, doesn't call an angel, made no difference. Now, why didn't it affect Asaph? Here he has angels come and talk to him. He's got to be affected. Can you imagine what happened if you had that? Like you're having a disagreement with somebody. You have an argument with somebody, right? And then the doorbell rings, you open the door, and there's an angel standing there. And the angel says, listen, you're wrong. You had an argument with so-and-so, you've got to fix it. It's not right what you did. So are you going to argue with the angel? It's an angel, right? This is got to be true. It's got to be real, right? So therefore, why doesn't Asaph do that? And the reasoning is that there's really two answers for this. I'll give you one now, and if we have time, we'll go into another one later that ties into another one, answer. But one of them is that Asaph did not see himself as evil. He didn't believe he was evil. And this is an important point, because people who are bad, right, who break the law, who have no concept of good, who will do anything to you for themselves. Right? They'll steal from you and they'll justify it. They'll rationalize it. People like that don't believe that they're bad. They actually believe that they're good, and they have a need to do what they're doing, and they'll rationalize it for themselves. So somebody will come and they'll say, that they'll want to sell you something, and it won't be what you really want, but they'll convince you it is, and then you'll buy it, and then you'll come into them and you say, this is not what I wanted, and you want their money back, and they'll say, no, this is I did exactly what you asked for it. I'm going to, right? And they lied to you and they tricked you. Nevertheless, they will rationalize in their mind, no, that who is this person? They steal their money anyways, and their money's not their money. Or what do you mean? I'm going to give some of my money to charity. So of course, God, I'm not going to. I'm justified to take money. Or he's lying to me. Right? He's not being honest. Or he knew all along that this was. You can rationalize any way you want in your mind that I'm a good guy. Right? Like there used to be an expression that it's not an English expression and it's a bit rude, but it was that even Adolf Hitler could be a good dinner guest. In other words, you invite someone to your house. Adolf Hitler was the epitome of evil. But if you were a German and you invited him over for dinner, he's probably a nice guest. He'd sit and have a conversation with you. But the fact was he was evil. Right? But he didn't see himself as evil. And therefore everything he did wasn't evil in his mind, even though he was he has the example. You open the dictionary under evil, it's a picture of him. Right? That's how bad he was. But Asaph was the same thing. Asaph did not believe he was evil. He believed that he was right, and anytime that he did something that seemed wrong, he would always rationalize it. So therefore, if he would meet angels, all that did to him was make him understand that I am right. I'm seeing angels, I'm talking to angels because I am a good person. Otherwise, I wouldn't see angels. Right? So this is an important thing because a person has the ability to fool themselves. And we can fool ourselves in many ways. And here you see Asaph fooled himself to such an extent that he could have such an amazing spiritual experience and yet rationalize that to reaffirm that the things that he does wrong are actually right. Right? You know, there's an idea that says that the first time somebody sins, you feel terrible. Right? Any one of us, you do something you shouldn't do, you feel terrible the first time. The second time, you don't feel as bad. Right? So, and the third time, it's like nothing anymore. Like you just get used to it. And there's a joke that says that in the fourth time, you think it's a mitzvah already. Right? That's how we are, right? We get used to certain things. We rationalize in our head. It's the same way a doctor does surgery. Like many of the people I speak to who are in the medical world, the first time they had to do something like that, they'd faint. Right? They couldn't handle it. Right? And after a while, they get used to it because you get used to things. Right? Things are like that. So a person who's evil, gets used to it. And they act this way, and they think it's perfectly acceptable, perfectly normal. They rationalize in their brain, there's nothing wrong with this, right? Or they'll say, I'm doing it for a good purpose. Or nobody cares anyway. Everybody speeds. Doesn't make a difference, right? They're just picking on me by giving me a ticket. Right? That kind of rationale is what Asaph did. That's why he wasn't affected by the angels. So now, as I said, Yaakov is showing Asaph, by doing this, that he's subservient to Asaph. In other words, he's not tricking Asaph. He's letting Asaph know, I received blessings and you received blessings. Our Father gave us blessings, right? We had that a while ago. My blessings were that I'm going to use the physical world for the spiritual purpose, and the world to come is my world. The world of spirituality is my world. That's the world of the Jewish nation. You, Asaph, the physical world is yours. Right? That's yours. I'm in your world right now, so I want you to know I am subservient to you. I'm bowing down to you. Even if ultimately the best thing is that Asaph bows down to Yaakov, that is taking the physical world and using it for spiritual purposes, nevertheless, Asaph's arrogance and his feelings that he had were such that he was so upset at what Yaakov did that he was going to kill him. So Yaakov decides he's going to be a part of the choir here. He's going to follow along with Esau's opinion, and he's going to appease him. The alternative is that Esau's going to attack Yaakov and his family and kill them all. So he doesn't want that. So here is the beginning of that discussion. So he goes on at the end of this. In the English it says, and the angels came back, right? And they said, we came to your brother, to Asaph. Moreover, he is heading towards you, and 400 men are with him. Now he's got trouble, right? He's bringing an army, right? But there's a funny thing in this sentence. It says, right, they said, they spoke to Yaakov Lemor, saying, Banu el achicha el Esav. Right? We went to your brother, to Asaph. That's superfluous. Right? There's no need for them to say that. Remember, the Torah never has an extra word. So Yaakov only has one brother. His name is Esau. Yeah. He sent them to go see his brother Esau, right? So why do they come back and say, we saw your brother? Hey, we saw Esau, right? It's not like he had more than one. It's not like when Yaakov wanted to marry Rachel, he tells Lavan, I want to marry your daughter, the younger one, Rachel, right? Lavan tricks him anyways. But he's very specific. You have two daughters. Okay, I want the younger one. Oh, and what's her name? Her name is Rachel. I don't want you to think anything else. But Yaakov only has one brother. And these guys sent them. Yaakov sent them to go see that brother. So why do they say, to your brother, to Esau? So here the commentaries tell us is because there are two ways that Esau is going to attack Yaakov. Not only in the physical sense, but really in the spiritual sense for us today. Esau not only represents the world in that way, but he also represents evil, right? And at a certain level, he also represents the Yetzer Hara, that is the inclination within us to not do the right thing. It's like, we always have a choice. You can do what you want to do, or you do what you should do, right? I want to eat whipped cream. I should eat granola, right? But I want to eat whipped cream. I want to smoke cigarettes, but I shouldn't smoke cigarettes. Right? I want to do this, but I shouldn't do it. So doing what you want to do very often is your Yetzer Hara. It's your desires. It's something negative. Doing what you should do is your conscience speaking. It's your positive inclination, right? That's the choice we have in everything we do. I wake up in the morning, you know what, I'm really tired. I'm not going to go to shul, or I am going to go to shul, right? So I have a dilemma. What am I going to do? Right? So if I do what I want to do, I want to go to sleep. If I do what I should do, I'll go to shul. So that's the Yetzer Hara, right? So yeah, on a certain level, Esau represents the Yetzer Hara in this world. When we think on a spiritual level, because remember the Torah is understood in many levels. So if he's that, so it's saying the following to us: Esau is going to come to you in two ways throughout history. One way he's going to be Esau, that is, he's going to come to you with a sword. He's going to try to kill you. Your existence in this world is threatened by Esau. He is going to try to kill you physically. But he's also going to come in another way. He's going to come as your brother. He's going to love you to death. He's going to try to kill you that way. And you see it. You had, throughout history, right, you had Christian people in history that would make pogroms. They would make the Inquisition. They would make the Crusades. All of which, no matter how much they want to try to make them sound great, they basically were killing Jews. That's what, like the Crusades was just going from Rome to Israel and killing every Jewish community they could in horrible, horrible ways. And just killing one after another and taking all their things. And that's one time. That's called your brother Esau. That's called Esau. Esau comes, he's going to kill you just because you're Jewish. That's Hitler. Then you have your brother. And your brother is the one who's not going to kill you. He's going to convert you. He's going to love you. Love your neighbor. I love you. All right? Where our religion is all love. We're going to love you until we make you disappear. You're going to become one of us. You'll assimilate. You won't longer exist. So you have two ways that they attack us. In our times, right, for the most part, they're not physically attacking us. They're not that there is no anti-Semitism and there aren't people who do that, but it's not like the pogroms or the Holocaust or the Inquisition, thank God, right, where they're coming with a sword to kill us and we have to hide. Now they have missionaries, and the missionaries come out and try to tell us how we should convert. And they go to the Russian Jews who aren't educated, and they tell them this is Judaism, and they get them to convert. And they go to uneducated Jews or estranged Jews, and they get them to convert. Like I knew a guy that my father grew up with. I mean, my father is almost 90, so this is a man who's no longer living. But when I was a kid, he was like my father's age, and they grew up. Very Jewish identity, but not much Jewish knowledge. Where we lived, there wasn't much Jewish education, and but he was an identifiable proud Jew, but he was a bit of a kook, and he got married, and he got divorced, and he got married, and he got divorced, and a bit of a kooky guy. My father liked him, but he was because they grew up together. So one day the guy was going through a tough time, and he was traveling somewhere. I think he was going through a divorce, and at the same time his business was failing, And he was traveling somewhere, and he sat in the airport lounge, and a guy comes over to him and says, "Did you hear the good news?" Which is a missionary line. What's the good news? The good news, he has risen. And then he starts talking about Jesus. Right? Well, he bought it. And why? Not because he believed in it, but because he wanted someone to talk to, somebody he liked, somebody who cared about him. And this guy showed that he cared about him. Right? He loved him to death. That's what he did. And the guy converted. It didn't last long because he's a kook, but he did. But he converted because somebody cared about him. So, right, which teaches us a lesson, by the way. But that idea of Esav is sometimes going to come with a sword and say, "Convert or die," and sometimes going to come with a kiss. Right? And he's going to say, "Come on, I'm your brother. Come, let's do something. Let's do this together." Either way, it could be a problem. And that's what the angels are saying. Esav's coming. Right? Be careful. He might come with a sword. He might not. But either way, he's going to try to kill you. Right? And he's got 400 men with him. That's the message. What has he got the 400 men for? Because he's going to try to kill you. So he says, Jacob became very frightened, and it distressed him. So he divided the people. So now we see the next thing that somebody does when they're having a military situation. Right? I'm going to go meet the government, or I'm dealing with military, is that he split his people in two. Yaakov had an entourage. He had his wives, his children, his servants, his animals, his belongings. So he splits them into two camps. For he said, if Esav comes to the one camp and strikes it down, then the remaining camp will survive. Then Jacob said, God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, Hashem, who said to me, return to your land and to your relatives, and I will do good with you. Right? I have been diminished by all of your kindness and by the truth that you have done for your servant. For with my staff I crossed the Jordan, and now I become two camps. So Yaakov is saying to God, which is the next thing we're supposed to do. First you set up the military. You split in two. If he attacks one camp and he kills them, the other camp can run away. So he's not going to destroy all of us. That's what Yaakov does. Next thing he does, you pray to God. Right? You pray to God that he should help you. Right? And that's what he's doing. Right? And you promised me, God, that you take care of me, and I am humbled by that, and I have become two camps. Rescue me, please, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esav. Right? Again, the same thing, two ways he speaks about his brother. For I fear him, lest he come and strike me down, mother and children. He's going to come and kill my whole family. And you have said, God, he tells God, I will surely do good with you, and I will make your offspring like the sand of the sea, too numerous to count. So here, right, he tells him, right, that you are, that God, he reminds God, you said that I'm going to become a nation. You can't let us all be killed, right? So it'll be an embarrassment to you. You promised, right? If you let us be killed, people are going to say you lied, right? So here he comes with that. So then now we see what happens. It says in English again, he spent the night there. Then he took from that which he had come in his hand a tribute to Esav his brother. So he spent the night there. In other words, he sent one group over the other side of the river. He's on one side of the river, right, with his other group, and he's sleeping there. Now he goes to sleep, and then he prepares himself for a gift for Esav. That's the next thing that's done, is you bribe them. You bribe them. You give them, right? Listen, this is your world. I'm wealthy, but it's your wealth. So he gives them. So he shouldn't kill him. He sends a gift for Esav, 200 goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 nursing camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-donkeys and 10 he-donkeys. He puts in his servants' charge. Each drove separately, and said to his servants, pass on ahead of me and leave a space between drove and drove. He says, like, in other words, go up ahead of me, and the one with the cows go first, and then the other one with the lambs, and keep separate, so that Esav sees this long line of gifts for him. We're going to give him. When my brother Esav meets you and asks you, and he says, whose are you, where are you going, and whose are these that are before you? He's going to say, now he's telling the angels, Esav's going to meet you first, you're first, with all of the gifts, and you should say to him, your servant Jacob's. This all belongs to Jacob, but it's a tribute sent to my Lord, to Esav. And behold, he himself is behind us. So now he wants Esav to be happy. So he sends him all these gifts, and as soon as he gets the gifts, the next person that comes is Yaakov with his family, so that hopefully he won't be angry. He similarly instructed the second and the third. He does this with every group, and as all who followed the droves. And he says, in this manner you shall speak to Esav, And you shall say, moreover, behold, your servant Jacob is behind us. I mean, say, your servant Jacob, not just Jacob. Right? For he said, I will appease him with the tribute. I'm going to bribe him, right, with what I'm giving him. And afterwards I will face him, and perhaps he'll forgive me. Right? Forgive me for getting the blessings, right, and which he wanted to kill him for. So the tribute passed on before him while he spent that night in the camp. So they went ahead. He spends the night there. Now here we have, we're going to start a very interesting story. But he got up that night, and he took his 2 wives, his 2 handmaidens, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. So he took now the group that was with him, he put them on the other side of the river also, before he went to sleep. And he took them and he had them cross over the stream, and he sent everything he owned. So now he's all by himself on one side, and everybody else is in 2 camps, but on the other side. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. So here Jacob is all by himself, right, at night, and suddenly he is confronted by somebody, a man, who wrestles with him all night, right, to kill him. He's trying to kill him. When he perceived that he could not overcome him, when this man could not win, he saw that Jacob's too strong. He struck the socket of his hip. He hit Yaakov in the sciatic nerve, so that Jacob's hip socket was dislocated as he wrestled. And he said, let me go, for dawn has broken. And he said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. So here what happens is he hurts Yaakov, but Yaakov's still winning. So Yaakov's holding on to this man. And the man goes, let me go. We're done. It's morning. Yaakov says, I won't let you go unless you bless me. And so the guy says to him, what's your name? And he says, Jacob. He says, no longer will it be said your name is Jacob, but your name is Israel. For you have striven with the divine, and with man you've overcome. Then Jacob says, tell me, please, what's your name? Like, you asked me my name, tell me your name. And he said, why then do you inquire of my name? Why do you want my name? And he says, and he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of this place Peniel. So let's stop there. So first thing is, clearly Jacob does not think this is a man. A man that shows up in the middle of the night like some caveman to wrestle with him is not going to give him a blessing. And he doesn't care that it's morning, right? So he realizes that this is an angel. He's wrestling with an angel. And the angel is the angel of Asaph. Now, as Asaph also has a governing spiritual entity who is evil, is the angel of death. We'll call the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death. And he's coming to wrestle with Yaakov. This is symbolic of the 2,000 years of wrestling that we've done with the children of Asaph from the destruction of the Second Temple till today. The long, dark night of the dispersion that we're living in now is what this is symbolizing, right? Throughout the whole night we're fighting. And we're on top. He's on top. We're on top. He's on top. And finally, he sees he's going to lose, so he fights dirty. And he hits him in this nerve. Now, some say he hit him actually in his genitals. Right? That was fighting dirty. Others say that he hit him in the sciatic nerve. Right? But whatever it did, it caused an injury to Yaakov. And but nevertheless, Yaakov's still winning. And the guy says, okay, you won. Let me go. It's the morning. What does that mean? He's an angel. And the morning comes, he has to praise God. He has to praise God, an angel's job. That's what he does. An angel has a job to do. So his job was to fight Yaakov. Right? He does his job. And now he's got to sing to God. He has to praise God. Yaakov won't let him go. He says, sure, I'll let you go, but bless me. You're the angel of death, but you're still an angel. So you bless me. That way I'm going to have more power over you in the future. So he says, well, what's your name? And he tells him, and he changes his name. That's the blessing. His name is Israel. So then Yaakov says to him, well, what's your name? And he doesn't tell him. He says, what do you want to know my name for? And then he blesses him and he leaves. And he lets him go. Though, now let's put it together. So he's wrestling this angel. The angel sees he's going to lose. The angel is the angel of death, representing Asaph, the 2,000-year struggle we have. He realizes he's not going to win, so he hits him in the genitals. That is, he hits him in some of his offspring. Some of the children, the Jewish people who are coming through history, are going to be corrupted because of what he did. He couldn't kill the Jewish nation, he couldn't stop the Jews from being holy, but he could take some of them. He got some of them, and he did. Some of the Jews assimilated throughout history. Some Jews became evil. Some Jews became very bad for the Jewish people. They turned in Jews. They hurt Jews. Right? They were very negative. Right? Take your pick. You want to be the founders of communism, socialism. I mean, look at all of the great isms of the world. And how many were Jews that led them, that founded them? Right? This is what he did when he hid him there. Right? And then Yaakov realizes he's an angel. And he wants to go because he wants to praise God because he did his job. Wait a minute, though. He didn't do his job. His job was to destroy Yaakov. He didn't destroy Yaakov, right? So what does he mean? It's time for me to go sing praise. You failed. You got to keep wrestling with me until you kill me. Then you can go sing praise because you did your job, right? You do your job, then you can praise God. The fact is, he did his job. The job of the Yetzer Hara, of the evil inclination, is to fail. When we have a desire to do the wrong thing, it's not because God wants us to do the wrong thing. It's because God wants to tempt us because he knows we have the ability to not choose to be tempted. So we are hungry, and the hunger hurts. Right? We want to eat, and we see McDonald's, and we see a kosher restaurant. McDonald's is closer. McDonald's is cheaper. Right? We have a desire to go there, but we don't. Right? We have the ability to stand up to that desire and win. Right? That means that the Yetzer Hara's job is to lose. That means it does its job. When he came to wrestle with Yaakov, he was supposed to fight him with all his strength. And if Yaakov would not put all his strength in, Yaakov would lose. But the angel who was fighting him, his job was to do his best to get Yaakov to lose. But you are successful when you lose. Right? When the Yetzer Hara loses, that's the purpose of the Yetzer Hara. It's doing its role. Its role is to tempt us to do wrong, but for us not to do wrong. And then it's succeeded. Right? So that's why he does that. He wants to praise God now because he failed. That's his success. You understand? I know it's a play on words, but that's the idea. Mm-hmm. Then he asks Yaakov his name, and he says, you fought with the divine and with man. So what does it mean? Because he is divine. He's an angel. Right? You have fought throughout your life with Esau, with Lavan, with all these people, and now with me, and you've won. So you are Yisrael. Now, from now on, his name isn't changed. Like Abraham's name was changed from Avram to Avraham, and Sarai was Sarah. His name was not changed. It was an additional name. So because throughout the Torah, you see he's called Yaakov, he's called Yisrael, Yaakov, Yisrael. So whenever Yaakov is acting as the founder of the Jewish nation, he's called Yisrael. Whenever he's Yaakov, the man, the great man, right, dealing with his sons, dealing with life, then he's Yaakov. But he's both, right? So that's why he's given two names. He is both the founder of the Jewish people. He is the one who gave us who we are, but he is also a father. Right? He has two roles, just like we do. I have a role in my position, and I have a role in my family. I can't ignore my family. Right? You can't have the shoe guys. What is it? The cobbler's son has no shoes. You can't do that. You have to also be with your family, but you also have other things to do. So in this case, Yaakov is the same way. So now when Yaakov tells him his name, now Yaakov asks him his name. Why doesn't he tell him? He has a name. Right? His name was Samuel. That was the name of this angel, the Talmud tells us. Samuel means, Sam is to sleep, or to be blind, or a drug. Right? You know the word in English, narcotic. Right? It comes from Latin, narc means to sleep. Right? Narcotics make you sleep. They make you sleepy. That's one of the things they do. Right? In Hebrew, it's samim. Sam also means to sleep. But it also can be a soma. A suma is a blind person also. So this Samuel, this angel, his job was to make us asleep. In other words, you go through life asleep. You do whatever your body tells you to do. You don't think about it. You don't do the right thing. You do what you want to do. It's like when you're groggy, you don't necessarily act right. Right? When you drink a little bit and it makes you tired, you lose your judgment. That's how he wants us to live. That's why his name was Samuel. But he doesn't tell him his name. And this is why he doesn't tell him his name. Because Yaakov says, you are anti-Semitism. That's who you are. That's who you are. And you're fighting me. It's a symbol. For 2,000 years, the anti-Semites are going to fight the Jews and try to destroy us in all different ways. That's what this whole wrestling match is. It's a message to a prophecy to Jacob for the future. So tell me, how are you going to do it? How are you going to fight us? What is going to be the fight? And he doesn't answer him because he has no name in this way. That is to say, in every generation, it's going to be a different struggle. In the generation, let's say, of the, before the war, Jews were starving, right? They didn't have food. So the younger generation says, this Judaism is crazy. We have to make it that everybody has food. We have to make it that everybody has a house. Everybody has a place to live. Everybody has a job. We're all the same. We have to have freedom. That's communism, right? That brought out communism. So that generation, this angel, his name was communism. And then you had other isms. You had the socialism. You had the Bundism. And every generation had something, right, that attacked the Jewish people, either through war or through thinking. Right? That Judaism is not for me. It's old-fashioned. I've got something new. I have to help people. My parents are starving to death because they're religious Jews. Right? We have to live in a world where everybody's equal, everyone's the same. Right? So that became, even if it was well-meaning, that became what this angel's name was. And in every generation, the angel has a different name. He changed, right? Because it's never the same. The problems of my father's generation are not the problems of my generation. The problems of my generation are not the problems of my children's generation. They face much different problems than I did. And their children will face different ones than them. That's why he doesn't tell them his name, because it's not the same. It changes all the time. Therefore, you don't see that that he gives them a name. And then, of course, he lets them go, and he leaves. And in the last part of this section, it says here on the same page, at 177, it says that Jacob called the name of this place Peniel, for I have seen the divine face to face. Panim is face, Peniel, face of God. He wrestled with his angel, who was like, he was a negative force, but he was a spiritual entity, right? Yet my life was spared. The sun rose for him, and he passed Penuel. Now the name changed. Before it was Peniel, now it's Penuel. So I have to admit I don't remember the reason for that, but there's a reason why it changes. But there is a question, as it says in Hebrew also, the sun rose for him. Like, did the sun only rise for Jacob, not for anyone else in the world? Didn't the sun rise for everyone? So this goes back to our original thing, which is that for Jacob, the sun rising was a miracle. For everybody else, the sun rises because it rises every day. But Jacob understood that was a miracle. But it says he was limping, because remember the angel heard him, right? He heard him. And that idea is that throughout the future, there will be Jews who will hurt Jews. There'll be Jews who will be bad for the world. There'll be some Jews who are corrupted, right? We all know that such stuff happens in the world. This is the symbol that the angel got a little bit, got something. He wasn't able to change us, got a little bit. So it says, because of this, the children of Israel are not to eat the displaced sinui of the hip socket to this day, which means to this day always means forever, because today I'm telling you is this day, every day. This is the law, what we call the Gid Anusha. The Gid Anusha is a sciatic nerve found in an animal, just like we have one. It's about as thick as your thumb in a cow. That's why we don't eat the back of a cow, right? Because there's a Torah law that says to remember this struggle. Remember that he injured us. Because of that, we symbolically don't eat this. Eating this is like eating treif. It's a big sin, and that's why today we don't eat those parts of the animal. Okay, so and now, I mean, we haven't gotten very far, but Jacob now, it's morning. Jacob raises his eyes in the daylight, and Esau's coming. He sees him in the horizon. 400 men, got an army with him. So now he's got his people with him. He divides them up. He has Leah, Rachel, their handmaids. He put the handmaids and their children first, Leah and the children next, Rachel and Joseph last. And he himself went on ahead. And now he goes in the front. Before he was in the back. Now he's going in the front, because now he has to safeguard his family. He's protecting his family. Here he goes first. And he bows down 7 times to his brother. Esau runs to him, embraces him, fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. So this is a very strange thing, because he thinks Esau's going to kill him. Esau runs, he's not going to kill him. So maybe his bribes and everything were successful. He runs up to him like a long-lost brother. He hugs him, right? He puts his head down on his neck, and he kisses him, and they both start crying. So all the commentaries say that this is a very deep statement of what's going on here. So first thing, Esav runs to him, right? He embraces him, and he fell on his neck. So he's telling us why he fell on his neck and he kissed him on his neck. It says that he actually wanted to bite him. He wanted to kill him. He wanted to take a bite out of his neck. It says, but miraculously God turned his neck into stone, so he couldn't. All he could do was kiss him. That is this, but that's on the level of the Medrash that explains this. That Esav wanted to hurt Jacob. He saw when God made it not possible for him, so then he went the other way. Remember, it's Esav the fighter and Esav the lover. He's both sides. It's going to get you one way or the other. So he kisses him, and they both wept. Why did they weep? What are they both crying about? So, even in the English it says, following the above view, Esav was generally moved by the side of Jacob. He comments that one that cannot cry unless he's generally moved for tears. Esav's kiss, accompanied by tears, proved that he was more than a selfish, violent hunter. He was also a descendant of Abraham who had feelings. So, at this point, we see that, according to some of the commentaries, that Esav had goodness within him, but he was killing it. Right? Because nobody is evil. No one is born evil. Nobody is totally evil. And he had within him the ability to change, to become good. But it was, at this point, was being destroyed. It was small. But it came out when he saw his brother. And in other words, first he wanted to kill his brother. Now it's been a long time, many years, right? Like 21 years since he saw his brother. Now he sees his brother. He sees his brother subservient to him. He bows down to him. His brother gives him respect. So he has a little bit of affection. But before he gets the affection, he tries to hurt him. But then he can't do that, and he has that. So he now Esav raises his eyes, and he looks out and he says, look at this. My brother Yaakov, right? Who his world is the world to come, the spiritual world. But wait a minute, look at all the stuff he's got. This is my stuff, right? This is this is my world. And Yaakov's got lambs and sheep. He's got sheep and he's got cows. He's got all kinds of animals. He's got wives. He's got children. He's got money. He's got everything. And he looks up and he says it. And he saw the women of the children. He says, "Who are these to you?" And he says, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." So they started to introduce themselves. The handmaids came forth with their children, and everyone comes forward and they bow down to him. And he says, what did you intend by the whole camp that I met? So why did you send all this stuff to me? Like first you send out these guys, and then you send out wagons of things. Why did you do that? To find favor in my Lord's eyes. As I want you to like me, Yaakov says. Esav says, forget that. I have plenty. I don't need your stuff. I'm a rich man. This is my world. My brother, let what you have remain yours. I'm not accepting your gifts, he says. Right? I'm not taking it. But Jacob says, no, I beg of you. I have found favor in your eyes. Please, you're being nice to me. Please take what I'm offering you. Accept my gifts. And as much as I've seen your face, which is like seeing the face of a divine being. And he's praising his brother. And you were appeased by me, and you're happy with me now. Please take it. Please accept my gift which was brought to you, and as much as God has been gracious to me, and as much as I have everything. And Esav takes it. Now, you'll notice a difference. Esav says, I have plenty. Right? I have a lot. Yaakov says, I have everything. It's very different. We have a rule. Someone who loves money never has enough money. It comes from King Solomon says this. No matter what, if only I made $100,000 a year, I'd be happy. All my problems would be over. What happens when you make $100,000? You want to make $200,000. When you make $200,000, you want to make $400,000. You're never happy. If money is important to you, if acquiring things is important to you, you'll never have enough. Right? So that's Esav. Esav has got a lot, but there's always more. There's more diamonds. There's more gold. There's more animals. There's more servants. There's always more, and I can get more. I'm Esav. I'm the hunter. I can get whatever I want. I've got a lot. Right? But Yaakov says, I have everything. What do you mean you have everything? He doesn't have a little bit of what Esav has. Because Yaakov says, my world is a spiritual world. I'm interested in the spirit. God gave me physical things just so that I can use them in a spiritual way. Right? That's the only reason. Why do I have animals? So that I can eat them, say a blessing, kill them kosher. Get the energy I get, I can do positive acts with. God gave me children so that I should raise them to be ethical people, not to work for me. For Esav, the children worked for him, right? They were his farm hands. For Yaakov, they were right. They were the future. So he would educate them. So Yaakov says, I have everything. Whatever God gave to me, I have everything. Like it says in the Torah, in the Pirkei Avos, who is wealthy? Who's wealthy? Remember what it says? He who is happy with what he has. Does that mean that you're lazy? You're happy with what you have? I don't care. No. It means that you want more. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm happy with what I have. Like God gave me this, I'm happy with it. I don't feel shorted, no matter how much it is. I could have very little, and I'm happy with it. I could have a lot, I'm happy with it. Because that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here for the money. So Yaakov says, I have everything. I have everything I need. And Esav says, I have a lot of what I need, but I don't have it all. Until I have it all, I got nothing. So that's what he's saying here. And at that point, Esav takes it. Then he says to him, where are we here? Okay. He says to him, travel on and let us go. I will proceed alongside you. Esav says, you know what? I'm coming with you. We're brothers. We're one. I'm going to come with you. Let's go. Well, we're going back to Israel. Let's go together. We're close. Right? Yaakov doesn't buy it. So he says to him, my Lord knows that the children are tender, and the nursing flocks and cattle are upon me. If they will be driven hard for a single day, then all the flock will die. Let my Lord go ahead of his servant, and I will make my way at a slow place, according to the gate of my Lord, the gate of the drove before me, and the gate of my children, until I come to the Lord at Seir. So he says to Esav, listen, I'm going to be slow. I got women, they're slow, and they're nursing babies, and I got little baby animals, and I got little children. You're an army. Go ahead, and I'll catch up to you, right? I'll meet you in Seir, which was the land that Esav lives in. You'll notice, I don't have time to tell you about it later, so Yaakov doesn't go to Seir. He doesn't do it. There's another part of his idea, which is if Esav truly repented and wanted to be a partner with Yaakov, the world would have been perfect. Because here you have this world and the world to come united. But Yaakov knew it wasn't real. It's Esav, my brother. This is my brother talking. My brother wants to make me a part of his belongings. He wants us to go together because he's going to take me over. Right? He wants to come and live in Israel with me because he wants to take over Israel. Right? He doesn't just want to live in Israel. He wants to make me a part of him. So Yaakov says, no, come on, you're so powerful, you're so big, and you're in a hurry. Go ahead and I'll catch up to you. But he doesn't even go there. Right? So Esav started back that day on his way to Seir, but Jacob journeyed to Sukkot and built himself a house, and for his livestock he made shelters. He therefore called the name of the place Sukkot. This is also a problem. First thing is he didn't go to Seir, as you see. But so he goes to this place called Sukkot. Right? Why is it called Sukkot? It says because he went there, he built a house for himself, and then he built a sukkah for his animals. Right? And the Gemara says that this was something very important that Yaakov did. He's the first one in history who took care of animals. Up until now, the animals just lived outside. Right? Yaakov saw there's bad weather, there's a need. I'm going to build a shelter for my animals. That I should take care of my animals. There's an idea of being kind to animals. That he did this. Right? He built Sukkot for his animals. And it says that this was a very important thing, that it was the beginning of a civilized person who would act in such a way, would take care of those who are less than them, who are not on the same level as them. But first he built himself a house. That is for his family. It's not that this is one of the problems that some people have, I myself find it difficult, with the animal rights people. The animal rights people equate animals to humans. Right? You always hear it on the radio when one of them calls in. So the radio guy always does the same shtick with them. He says, "You're driving down the road and the road is slippery, and you see your car goes into a slide. It's sliding. You can't stop, but you can control. It's going to go to the right or to the left. On the right is a 10-year-old boy. On the left is a puppy. Which way are you going to go?" And they'll always say, "I can't answer the question. Either one's wrong." It's like, if I would say to you, on the right is a 10-year-old boy, and the left is a 12-year-old boy, which way would you go? You can't answer that question, right? So to them, they're saying animals and humans are the same. They're both. You can't purposely kill an animal so you save a person. Well, for us, that's absurd, right? That means that they're equating humans and animals. Yaakov is saying you have to take care of animals. You have to treat animals with respect. You can't put them in pain. You have to they have feelings. but they're not human beings. Human beings are superior. So you first take care of your family, but then take care of your animals. Don't ignore your animals. Make sure you take care of them. And that was an important point, right? And throughout history, people who have been cruel to humans have been ones who have made animals on a much higher level. You know, in the same time when they passed the laws in Nuremberg, the Nazis, they passed a bunch of laws. They passed a law that said you're not allowed to bring a circus into a major German city. It was Berlin, they said. You can't bring a circus. In Europe, there were a lot of circuses then, right? That was a big thing. And you can't bring a circus in. And the reason was because the circuses were cruel to animals. They don't take care of them properly. Right? You get an elephant, you bring him around the side of a little cage, or a lion, and you don't take care of them properly. So they said you can't bring that into Berlin. And at the same meeting, they took away the human rights of the Jews. That you can kill the Jews, you can take their belongings, and no one can do anything. The justice system doesn't apply to them. So the same meeting that gave superior rights to animals, that you can't bring an animal, we won't allow you to come into our country with an animal that you're trying to treat poorly, that you could do it to humans. That you could do. Right? That shows you the problem. That too often people who stress animals do it at the extent of the humans. Right? You're not allowed to treat an animal badly. And I'm not saying that all people who feel that they go out and work to try to help animals are treating humans badly. It's not true. But there is always the extreme fringe that seems to be doing it, and they're the ones you always hear about. So, and that brings us then to the next place. We don't have much time for it, but I'll just tell you, Yaakov had a daughter. Her name was Dinah. And Dinah, in the next section, gets kidnapped and raped by, it says here, right, it says, if we read on, it says, he brought the parcel of land upon which he pitched his tent from the children of Hamor. Hamor was a king of this land, and he was the father of Shechem, and he bought this land, that Yaakov bought the land to be able to live on, right, where he built his house from him, and he set up an altar there and he prayed to God. Then it says, now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, went out. His daughter went out and was looking around, right, and she saw a city. So she went to look at the people who lived there. Shechem, the son of Hamor, right, the prince of the city, saw her, he took her, and he raped her. Right? He lay with her and violated her. And he became attached to her. He wanted to marry her. So he tells his father, Hamor, the king, go to Yaakov, who's the king of the Jews, and tell him, I want to marry his daughter. Right? I'm a prince. She's a princess. I want to marry her. We'll become like one people. So you have this long story goes on, which we don't have time for, as to what happens. But Yaakov's not going for this. I mean, we're not going to assimilate. We're not going to intermarry. Right? They might be wonderful people, but we're not going to intermarry. So Yaakov is waiting for his sons to come back and to see what they're going to do. The sons, of course, two of his sons, Shimon and Levi, they sit down at a meeting with this Hamor, right, who's there on behalf of his son who wants to marry Dinah, to negotiate for her. And he says, we'll let you marry our daughter, my father's daughter, our sister, but you have to. But for us, it is disgusting that our daughter would marry someone who has a foreskin, doesn't have a circumcision. So if you go and circumcise yourself and all of the men of your country, you can marry our sister. So what does he do? He does it. He circumcises himself and all the men of the country. And the third day after they do it, they're all in pain. Shimon and Levi come in and kill them all. Kills them all. Right? Because they're not able to fight back. Right? So now later on, Yaakov curses them for this, that this was not right. The idea, Yaakov understood that they were going to get them to say they should circumcise so that they would be weak, so they could go in and take their sister back. But not that they were going to kill everybody. Yaakov did not necessarily know that. So he was not happy with that. That was not the way that Jewish people act. But, however, there's many ways of understanding it, but that they did this. And they killed them all and brought her back. There are some who say that she had a child with him, and the child ended up marrying Yosef. And so later on we'll get to her, that she was adopted by Potiphar in Egypt, and she was raised by, ended up marrying Yosef, Dinah's daughter, and Dinah lived with Yosef. But that'd be for another parsha.